Admiral Gray stood at the observation deck of the Stellar Dominion's flagship, his four eyes fixed on the holographic display of a blue-green planet spinning slowly before him. Earth, as its inhabitants called it, looked peaceful from this distance, too peaceful to be any real threat to the Dominion's expansion. "Your assessment, Science Officer?" Gray asked, his voice carrying the natural authority that came with 300 years of military service. Officer Smith brought up another set of data streams, her fingers moving gracefully across the control panel. "Primitive by our standards, Admiral. They've barely reached their own moon. Their space stations are crude. Most of their weapons still use chemical propulsion." Gray nodded slowly, watching the planet rotate. Something about this world made him uneasy, though he couldn't explain why. Perhaps it was the way the humans had progressed so quickly in the last century. The Dominion had been watching them, of course. They watched all potential threats. "Show me their conflicts," he ordered. The hologram shifted, highlighting various regions in red. Smith explained, "They fight among themselves constantly. No unified government. Their largest nations maintain separate military forces. Some have nuclear weapons, but they're crude compared to our fusion arsenal." The data painted a clear picture. A divided species that spent more time fighting itself than looking to the stars. Easy prey for the Dominion's expansion. Yet that unease remained in Gray's stomach. "Their adaptability index is unusual," Smith noted, bringing up a new chart. "They've gone from primitive flight to space travel in less than a century. Their rate of technological advancement is exponential." "A fluke," Captain Reed interrupted, joining them on the observation deck. "Many species show rapid advancement just before their collapse or conquest. It means nothing." Gray turned to face his subordinates. The captain was young, eager for glory. Smith was more cautious, as all good scientists should be. "The Council wants our assessment within the day," he reminded them. "They expect us to recommend immediate conquest." "It's the logical choice," Reed said confidently. "Their technology is centuries behind ours. They have no unified defense, no shield technology, no faster-than-light travel. They're barely into their atomic age." Smith zoomed in on various human cities. Their population centers are vulnerable. Their military bases are easy to identify. A coordinated strike could cripple their defense capabilities within hours. Gray watched the images flow past. Human cities, their primitive vehicles, their basic spacecraft. Everything pointed to an easy victory. The Dominion had conquered dozens of worlds at this stage of development. None had posed any significant challenge. "Very well," he said finally. "Prepare the invasion assessment. Standard conquest protocol. Neutralize their military capabilities. Demonstrate our technological superiority, and accept their surrender." He paused, then added, "But recommend we begin with a show of force. One major city should be enough." As his officers left to prepare the report, Gray remained at the observation deck. The blue planet continued its slow rotation in the hologram, unaware of the fate about to befall it. He thought about the data they'd collected, the rapid technological advancement, the constant warfare that had honed their military thinking, their ability to adapt to new situations. In 300 years of military service, Gray had learned to trust his instincts. And his instincts were screaming that this primitive species was more dangerous than they appeared. But the Council wouldn't want to hear about instincts. They wanted facts, data, and logical conclusions. He pressed a button, and the hologram zoomed out to show Earth's solar system, such a small, insignificant place in the vast expanse of space. The humans had named their planet Earth, a simple name for what they thought was the center of everything. Soon, they would learn their true place in the galaxy, and if Gray's instincts were wrong, it would be a quick and easy conquest, another triumph for the Dominion's unstoppable expansion. But if his instincts were right, Gray pushed the thought away. He had a report to approve and an invasion to plan. The humans would fall like all the others before them. After all, what could one primitive species possibly do against the full might of the Stellar Dominion? The first attack came without warning. Dominion ships emerged from hyperspace above Earth's major military installations, their massive forms blocking out the sun. Admiral Gray watched from his command center as the carefully planned assault began. "All ships report ready," Captain Reed announced, his voice eager. "Targeting systems locked on primary military bases, waiting for your command, sir." Gray nodded slowly. "Begin the attack. Remember, this is just a show of force. Minimal civilian casualties." The sky lit up with energy beams as the Dominion fleet opened fire. Their targets were precise. Military bases, aircraft carriers, missile silos. The humans' primitive radar systems hadn't even detected their arrival until it was too late. But something was wrong. "Sir," Officer Smith called out, her voice tense. "The humans, they're not running." Gray moved to her station, watching the tactical display with growing concern. Instead of fleeing in panic, Earth's military forces were organizing, faster than should have been possible for a primitive species. At a U.S. military base, Captain Sam Miller saw the alien ships through his binoculars. His training hadn't covered this scenario, but 20 years of military service had taught him one thing. When outgunned, get creative. "Load the nuclear warheads," he ordered. "Not on missiles. Get them in the cargo planes. All of them." His second-in-command stared at him. "Sir, they're expecting missiles," Miller explained. "Their ships are positioned to intercept them. They're not looking for cargo planes playing suicide bomber." Above the Earth, Gray watched as primitive aircraft rose to meet his fleet. "Let them come," Reed said with a laugh. "Their weapons can't penetrate our shields." But these aircraft weren't firing weapons. They were flying directly at the Dominion ships, their holds packed with nuclear warheads. Before the Dominion's targeting systems could lock onto the slow-moving planes, the first one reached its target. The explosion ripped through the shield of a Dominion cruiser like it wasn't there. The ship's own energy field contained and amplified the nuclear blast, turning the shield into a death trap. "Impossible," Reed shouted as the cruiser fell from the sky. "Their technology is too primitive." "No," Gray said quietly. "We're the ones who were primitive. We thought technology alone brings victory." He watched as more cargo planes approached his fleet. All ships, evasive maneuvers, new targeting priority, all Earth aircraft. But the humans had more surprises. From hidden bunkers around the world, missiles launched, not at the Dominion ships, but into space. The missiles detonated high above Earth, creating an electromagnetic pulse that played havoc with the Dominion's sensitive equipment. "We've lost targeting systems on half the fleet," Smith reported, her voice shaking. "They're primitive nuclear weapons. The radiation patterns are unlike anything in our database. Our shields aren't calibrated for this type of attack." Gray watched as more of his ships fell. The humans weren't fighting according to any known military doctrine. They were improvising, adapting, finding weaknesses nobody knew existed. "Full retreat," he ordered. "Get our surviving ships out of range. Now." As the Dominion fleet pulled back to a safe distance, Gray studied the tactical display. They had lost 12 ships in less than an hour. 12 ships to a species that hadn't even mastered space travel. "Send word to the Council," he commanded. "The humans, they're different. We need a new strategy." He paused, watching Earth rotate below them. "And tell them to send reinforcements, all of them." On the surface, Captain Miller watched the alien ships retreat into space. He knew they'd be back, but humanity had won its first battle. Not with superior technology or numbers, but with the one thing the aliens hadn't counted on: humanity's endless capacity to improvise. "Send word to all commands," Miller said into his radio. "We've bloodied their nose. Now let's get ready for when they come back angry." Dr. Tom Walker hadn't slept in 3 days. He stood in a hidden underground lab, staring at pieces of a crashed alien ship spread across several tables. Other scientists worked around him, but his focus remained on the strange metal that seemed to change properties when electricity passed through it. "It's not just advanced technology," he muttered, making another note. It's like they took a completely different path in physics. But that means... His assistant looked up. Means what? Means they might have missed things we discovered, Tom said, reaching for his coffee. They went up. We went sideways. Now we can do both. In orbit, Admiral Gray received the latest intelligence reports. His 4 eyes widened as he read them. How long did it take them to do this? The hologram showed humans wearing pieces of Dominion armor, modified to work with their primitive power sources. They had stripped down the alien technology, rebuilt it, and combined it with their own in ways the Dominion had never considered. 2 weeks, sir, Smith reported. They're learning exponentially. Look at this. A new image appeared. A human fighter jet with Dominion shield technology grafted onto it. The shield was powered by a nuclear reactor that should have been too crude to work. But it did work. It worked better than the original. They're not just copying our technology, Smith explained. They're improving it, making it simpler, more efficient. They're breaking all the rules, Gray finished, because they don't know the rules exist. Back on Earth, in another hidden facility, Captain Miller watched his soldiers train with the new hybrid weapons. They had taken Dominion energy rifles and modified them to work with Earth batteries. The aliens' complex power cells had been replaced with simple systems that any soldier could fix in the field. Keep it simple, Miller told his troops. If it breaks, fix it with what you've got. The aliens won't expect their own weapons to be used against them. In his lab, Tom made another breakthrough. He held up a small device cobbled together from alien and human parts. It's a detector, he explained to the military observers. Finds weaknesses in their shield harmonics. Their shields change frequency to adapt to attacks, but they follow patterns, mathematical patterns. Can we exploit that? A general asked. Tom smiled. Already did. Their shields are like a lock with 1 million combinations, but they only use about 100 of those combinations. We can predict which one comes next. Across the world, humanity prepared. They didn't try to match the Dominion's technology level. Instead, they found shortcuts, combined technologies in ways the aliens had never imagined. Earth's factories were retooled, producing hybrid weapons and defenses that looked crude but worked with devastating effectiveness. In orbit, Gray watched all of this with growing concern. They're not acting like a primitive species, he told his officers. Most races we conquer try to copy our technology exactly. The humans, they're taking it apart, finding flaws we didn't know existed. The Council won't be pleased, Reed said. They expected this world to be conquered by now. The Council doesn't understand, Gray replied. We're not fighting a primitive species. We're fighting one that took a different path. And now they're learning our path while keeping their own. He looked at the latest images from Earth. Humans had turned their cities into fortresses, but not with advanced technology. They used simple materials, clever engineering, and a mix of technologies that no other species had thought to combine. We thought their primitive technology made them weak, Gray said quietly. Instead, it made them strong. They know how to fight without relying on advanced systems, and now they're adding our technology to their methods. In his lab, Tom finally slept, dreaming of new ways to combine the impossible with the practical. The aliens had shown humanity what was possible. Now humanity would show them what they had missed. Commander Mark Reed stood in Earth's first unified command center, deep under the Rocky Mountains. Screens covered the walls, showing battlefield data from around the world. But his attention focused on one particular image, a simulation of the Dominion's battle computer system. Their whole military runs on artificial intelligence, he explained to the gathered generals. Every ship, every weapon, every tactical decision goes through their battle computers first. And that's their weakness, Tom Walker added, stepping forward. His lab coat was stained with coffee, his eyes tired but excited. Their AI thinks like they do, in straight lines, following rules. But humans, we think crazy, Mark finished with a smile. And we found a way to use that. Above Earth, Admiral Gray faced a different meeting. The Dominion Council members glared at him through the holographic display. 3 months, the Council leader said. 3 months, and you've failed to conquer a primitive world. Explain yourself. Gray brought up the battle footage. The humans aren't fighting like any species we've encountered. They're unpredictable. They use our own technology in ways that shouldn't work but do. Our battle computers can't. The battle computers are perfect. Another council member interrupted. They contain the wisdom of 1,000 conquered worlds. That's the problem, Gray said quietly. They contain only what we expect. The humans don't do what we expect. Back on Earth, Mark's plan was put into motion. Around the world, human forces began acting completely irrationally. By Dominion standards, they retreated when they should advance, attacked when they should defend, used weapons in ways that defied standard military doctrine. In his flagship, Gray watched in confusion as his fleet's battle computers tried to make sense of the human movements. Nothing matched any known military patterns. The AI systems began to slow down, overwhelmed by decisions that didn't fit their programming. "Sir," Smith called out, "the humans are there." She stared at her screens in disbelief. "What are they doing?" Gray demanded. "Everything wrong," she whispered. "And it's working." Human forces had discovered that the Dominion's advanced targeting systems could be confused by simple smoke screens, something so primitive the aliens had never considered defending against it. Earth's fighters deliberately flew in patterns that looked like mistakes, causing the alien eye to waste time analyzing non-existent strategies. In the command center, Mark watched his plan unfold. "Their computers are trying to find patterns in chaos," he explained. "But there are no patterns. We're just doing whatever works." A soldier ran up with new reports. "Sir, the alien fleet, their ships are starting to fire on each other." Tom grinned. "Their AI can't handle the contradictions. It's seeing threats everywhere, trying to follow too many broken patterns at once." Gray watched in horror as his fleet fell into disarray. Ships fired at shadows, chased decoys, or froze completely as their computers tried to process the impossible tactical situation the humans had created. "Shut down the battle computers," he ordered. "Switch to manual control." But it was too late. The humans had launched their real attack. Modified missiles, carrying warheads that combined nuclear power with alien technology, streaked toward the confused Dominion fleet. Without their AI to coordinate defenses, the alien ships were vulnerable. "We did it backwards," Tom explained as they watched the explosions in orbit. "Instead of trying to match their technology, we found ways to make their technology work like ours. Simple, adaptable, sometimes messy, but it works." Gray stood on his bridge, watching his mighty fleet torn apart by a species that barely had space travel 3 months ago. The council was screaming orders through the holographic display, but he ignored them. "They never understood," he said to nobody in particular. "We thought our advancement made us superior. But the humans, they stayed primitive enough to think without boxes, and that made them stronger than us." The first human fleet didn't look impressive. Their ships were a mix of Earth engineering and salvaged alien technology, built in underground factories across the planet. They looked rough, unfinished, almost primitive compared to the sleek Dominion vessels. But they worked. Commander Mark Reed stood on the bridge of Earth's first star carrier, the Phoenix. The ship had been built inside an abandoned mine, its design a combination of human practicality and alien science. Looking at his crew, he saw determination in their eyes. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were taking the fight to the enemy. "All ships report ready," his communications officer said. "The hybrid drives are working perfectly." Mark nodded. "Send the signal. Operation Payback begins now." In his command ship, Admiral Gray received the alert. Human vessels detected leaving Earth orbit. Multiple signatures, hundreds of them. He couldn't keep the surprise from his voice. How did they build so many ships so quickly? Officer Smith brought up the scans. Sir, these ships, they're not built like ours. They're simpler, cruder, but she paused, checking her readings again. They're more powerful. They're using our technology in ways our scientists said were impossible. The human fleet moved faster than any first-generation Space Force should have been able to. They had taken the Dominion's complex propulsion systems and simplified them, making them more efficient through human ingenuity. All ships, battle formation, Gray ordered, but he knew something had changed. The humans weren't just defending anymore. They had learned, adapted, and now they were hunting. The battle began in the space near Mars. Human ships didn't follow any known combat patterns. Each captain fought their own way, making decisions that confused the Dominion's battle computers. Some ships rammed straight through energy barriers that should have stopped them, their hybrid shields glowing with combined human and alien technology. Their weapons, Smith reported, her voice shaking. They're using our own shield frequencies against us. Every shot. She didn't finish as another Dominion cruiser exploded. On the Phoenix, Mark watched the battle unfold. Remember, he transmitted to his fleet, don't think like them. Think like us. They expect rules and patterns. We give them chaos. Human ships darted between Dominion formations, firing weapons that combine nuclear power with alien energy systems. The alien shields, designed to stop energy weapons or physical projectiles, couldn't handle attacks that were both at once. Impossible, Gray whispered as another of his ships fell. Their technology is too crude to do this. No, sir, Smith corrected him. Their technology is crude enough to do this. They found simpler solutions than we did, more direct paths to the same goal. The battle spread across the solar system. Human ships weren't as durable as Dominion vessels, but they were easier to repair. Crews could fix battle damage with simple tools and spare parts, while Dominion ships needed complex automated systems for even basic repairs. Mark's voice came through the Dominion's communication channels. You thought technology meant superiority, he said, but humans have something better. We adapt. We improvise. We overcome. Gray watched as his fleet, once the pride of the Dominion, was pushed back by ships that looked like they'd been built in garages. The humans had turned their primitive knowledge into an advantage, combining it with stolen technology to create something entirely new. Send word to the Council, Gray ordered. The humans, they're not just defending anymore. They're coming for us, and I don't think we can stop them. On the Phoenix, Mark gave the order to pursue the retreating Dominion ships. Humanity's first counterattack had succeeded, but this was just the beginning. They had the technology now, and more importantly, they had the will to use it in ways the Dominion never imagined. All ships, he commanded, set course for deep space. It's time to show the galaxy what humans can really do. Admiral Gray stood before the Dominion Council, no longer through a hologram but in person. The Grand Council chamber, with its towering crystal walls and floating platforms, had once impressed him. Now it felt hollow, like everything else they had built. The humans have breached our outer defense line, he reported. His voice echoed in the silent chamber. 3 more colony worlds have pledged their support to Earth. Our home crews are starting to question our leadership. Impossible. The council leader's voice shook with rage. They are primitives. How could they turn our own people against us? A new hologram appeared in the chamber center. It showed a human ship helping a stranded Dominion colony vessel, sharing their simplified repair techniques. Another image showed human doctors treating injured Dominion civilians with medical methods that combined alien and Earth technology. Because they're not just fighting us, Gray explained. They're showing our people a different way, a better way. In deep space, Commander Mark Reed's fleet approached another Dominion stronghold. The Phoenix had been joined by dozens of new ships, some of them crewed by Dominion defectors who preferred humanity's practical approach to their own rigid systems. Enemy ships detected, his tactical officer reported. But something's different. They're not moving to attack positions. Mark watched as the Dominion fleet broke formation. Some ships turned to flee. Others powered down their weapons. On his command screen, messages began appearing from Dominion captains. They're surrendering, Mark realized. They've seen what happened to the other fleets. They know they can't win. Back in the council chamber, Gray continued his report. The humans don't destroy worlds like we do. They free them. They teach them. Every world we lose to them becomes stronger, more independent. They're not building an empire. They're breaking ours apart. Then we must use the planet killers. One council member shouted, "Destroy Earth as an example to others." "We can't," Gray said quietly. The humans, they found our hidden weapons facilities. But they didn't destroy them. They improved them, simplified them, then showed every world how to defend against them. Our ultimate weapons are now useless. On a former Dominion colony world, Dr. Tom Walker worked with alien scientists, showing them how to combine their advanced theories with practical human engineering. The aliens were amazed at how humans could take complex problems and find simple solutions. "Your way isn't wrong," Tom explained to them. "But sometimes a simpler path works better. You went up." He drew a straight line on a board. "We went sideways." He drew a curved line. "Now we can go both ways." The Dominion's carefully ordered society was falling apart, but not through destruction. It was transforming. Worlds that had been totally dependent on central control were learning to solve their own problems. Ships that had required complex AI could now be operated by their crews alone. In the council chamber, the floating platforms began to lower as the power grid fluctuated. The backup systems, too complex to maintain without constant AI control, were failing. "Don't you see?" Gray asked the council. "We made everything so complex that we became slaves to our own technology. The humans showed us there's another way, a way where technology serves us, not the other way around." "How do we stop this?" the council leader whispered. "We don't," Gray replied. "The humans have already won. Not by destroying us, but by showing everyone, including our own people, that there's a better path, a human path." He looked up at the crystal walls, now dark as more systems failed. "We thought they would be easy to defeat because they were primitive. Instead, they defeated us because they remembered something we forgot. Sometimes the simple solution is the best one." 1 year after the first Dominion ship appeared over Earth, Admiral Gray stood in a simple meeting room in Geneva. The walls were made of ordinary glass, the chairs were wooden, and sunlight streamed through open windows. It was so different from the crystal chambers and floating platforms of the Dominion Council. Commander Mark Reed sat across from him, while Dr. Tom Walker stood near a basic whiteboard covered in drawings. Representatives from both Earth and the former Dominion worlds filled the room. They weren't here to discuss surrender, but cooperation. "We were wrong about everything," Gray began, his 4 eyes focused on the simple paper document before him. "We thought advancement meant making things more complex. We thought power meant having the most advanced technology. We thought—" "You thought too much," Tom interrupted with a gentle smile. "Sometimes the best answer is the simple one." The peace treaty was written on paper, not stored in complex computer systems. It was simple. Earth and its allies would help the Dominion worlds transition to simpler, more reliable systems. In return, the Dominion would share their scientific knowledge, letting humans help find easier ways to use it. "Our ships still can't match your original technology level," Mark admitted, "but they work. They're reliable. One person with a wrench can fix them, instead of needing an AI and 1,000 robots." Gray nodded. "That's why you won. Not because you were stronger, but because you were more human. You found ways to solve problems that we had forgotten were possible." Outside the meeting room, the world was changing. Former Dominion colony worlds were learning to be independent, using human-inspired hybrid technology that their own people could understand and maintain. Earth ships traveled between stars, carrying teachers instead of weapons. "What happens to the council?" someone asked. "They've stepped down," Gray replied. The worlds they once controlled are forming their own alliance, based on Earth's United Nations. Actually, simple, democratic, human. Tom walked to the whiteboard and drew 2 lines, one straight up, one going sideways and then up. This is what we learned from each other, he explained. The Dominion showed us what was possible. We showed them different ways to get there. Gray stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city where humans still used wheeled vehicles alongside newly built gravity cars, where old buildings stood next to ones made with alien materials, where the past and future mixed in ways his people had forgotten were possible. We came to conquer Earth, he said quietly. Instead, Earth freed us from our own complexity, showed us that advancement doesn't always mean making things harder. Mark joined him at the window. And now, what will you do? Learn, Gray replied. Learn how to be more human, how to think sideways when the path up is too hard, how to find simple answers to complex problems. The treaty was signed with ordinary pens. No AI verification, no complex security systems, just people agreeing to work together. As the documents were passed around, Tom made one final drawing on his board, a simple handshake. That's humanity's real strength, he said to the room. Not our technology or our weapons. It's our ability to adapt, to learn, to find new ways forward. And most importantly, to share what we learn. Outside, a Dominion ship flew past using a human-modified engine. Its crew had learned to maintain it themselves. No AI required. Below it, a human car drove by using alien anti-gravity, powered by a simple electric motor that any mechanic could fix. We thought the humans would be easy to defeat, Gray said, speaking the words that would be remembered by history. But they taught us that true advancement isn't about having the most complex solution. It's about finding the right one. Mark smiled. Welcome to the human way. It's not always pretty, not always perfect, but it works, Gray finished. And sometimes, that's all that matters.